There's a strip of dirt against the wall behind my father's house, maybe 2 feet wide, full of rocks, full of weeds nobody planted. If you handed me that corner and told me to grow food there, I'd laugh at you. I walked past it 100 times and never once slowed down. To me, it wasn't land. It was just a mess I'd clean up someday and never did. One morning, my father stopped in front of it, and he stood there. Not the way you look at a mess, the way you look at a garden bed that just doesn't know yet that it's a garden bed. He had that little squint he gets when he's already decided something. I asked him what he was looking at. He pointed at the wall, then down at the dirt. Then he said one word in Vietnamese and went to get his tools. I'll tell you that word near the end because it explains everything. But first, let me show you the corner. And let me show you how my father turns the worst spot on his property into the one that feeds us. Now, I'm not going to show you planting today. Not yet. Today is about the part everybody skips, the part that quietly decides everything, long before a single seed ever touches the ground. My father is going to take the worst piece of land he owns, rocks, weeds, hard dry, dirt, jammed up against a wall, and turn it into a bed that can feed his whole family for a season. And here's the strange part, that wall. The thing that makes this corner look hopeless? My father says the wall is the exact reason he picked this spot. When he first told me that, I thought he had it backward. He didn't. Once he explained it, I couldn't unsee it. And I started noticing walls like this everywhere. So stay with me to the end. The last thing he said to me that morning changed how I look at every dead corner now, including 2 of them in my own yard that I'd already given up on. Let me guess something about you. You've got a corner like this too, along a fence, behind the shed, down the side of the house, where the hose barely reaches, hard dirt, a few rocks, weeds that just showed up on their own. You glance at it and you think exactly what I used to think. Nothing grows there. For most of my life, I believed you needed good soil to grow food. Rich, dark, crumbly dirt, the kind that comes in a bag with a price tag on it. And if your ground wasn't already like that, well, tough luck. So the bad spots on my property stay bad. I mowed around them. After a while, I stopped seeing them at all. I'd given up on that ground before I ever gave it a single chance. I'll be honest with you. I once had a strip beside my garage, exactly like his. Full sun half the day. And I told myself for 3 years it was hopeless. Too many rocks, too close to the concrete. 3 years I let good sunlight fall on bare dirt and grow nothing but weeds. My father has never given up on a single foot of ground in his life. He's 64. He grew up somewhere every inch of dirt had to feed a person, or a person went without. So when he looks at a dead corner, he doesn't see a lost cause. He sees a question nobody bothered to answer. And that morning he decided he was going to answer it. So back to that wall. When I look at a wall next to a garden, I see a problem. Shade down one side, a hard edge, a spot the mower won't fit into. My father looks at the very same wall and sees the opposite thing. He sees a free trellis. Here's what he means, in plain terms. Some plants grow up instead of out. They climb. Give them something to hold on to, and instead of sprawling all over your good ground, they go straight up. My father stood in front of that skinny 2-foot strip and did the math in his head. A climbing plant, planted tight against the wall, growing up instead of sideways. And suddenly, the width of the bed doesn't matter anymore because the garden isn't growing across the ground, it's growing into the air. Think about that for a second. A bush plant needs elbow room. It sprawls, it shades itself out, it takes up a big flat square of dirt. A climber takes a strip the width of your foot and then builds upward 6, 7, 8 feet up a wall you already own. You're not gardening the ground anymore, you're gardening the wall. I said that is 2 feet wide. What are you going to grow back here, one carrot? He held up a single finger, pointed it straight up the wall, and grinned at me, up, not out. And all he has to add later is a simple net for the plant to grab onto. That's it, no lumber, no fancy store-bought cage that costs more than the vegetables it holds. The wall was already standing there, catching sun all day, doing half the work for free. That's the thing about my father. He doesn't fight what a place gives him. He looks for what it's already offering, and he takes it. My father has a saying, tất đất tất vàng. An inch of soil is an inch of gold. To him, there is no such thing as bad land, only land that nobody has looked at closely enough yet. Now here's where I would have grabbed a shovel and just started swinging. My father didn't touch a thing yet. He crouched down low and he looked at the weeds, not to pull them, to read them, because thick weeds tell him something simple and important. Living things are already choosing this spot. Dead dirt grows nothing, not even a weed. So all those weeds I saw as the problem, to him, they were the first piece of good news. They meant the ground underneath still had life left in it. It hadn't been poisoned or packed down to nothing. It was just neglected. Then he pushed 2 fingers down into the soil, past the loose top layer, and felt around. He was asking the ground one question about the rocks. Are they sitting on the surface or are they buried deep? Because that's the difference between an afternoon of work and a week of it. Surface rocks you just lift off. Deep rocks tell you the good soil is thin and you need to build it up. He wanted to know which fire he was walking into before he threw the first punch. He pinched a little of the dirt, rubbed it between his thumb and finger, and let it fall. He even picked a wheat leaf, crushed it, and smelled it. I don't fully know everything he reads that way. I just know he's almost never wrong. He didn't say much. He gave a small nod, the nod he does when the answer is yes. To him, the weeds and the rocks were never the enemy. They were the ground telling him what it needed. Most of us clear a spot blind and hope. My father listens to it first, and then he knows. Quick thing before we keep going. I know some of you are staring at a dead corner in your own yard right this minute. A strip along the fence. That patch by the garage where nothing ever takes. Trust me, I've been there. Tell me about it down in the comments. Where is it and what's wrong with it? I read every single one, and I've got a feeling it's not nearly as dead as you think. Then, and only then, he starts to clear it. And he's thorough. Every weed comes out, roots and all not snapped off at the top, where it'll just grow back, but pulled out whole. Every rock, every bit of gravel, he lifts out and moves aside. He works that strip back and forth until what's left is clean, open, workable dirt. Nothing to fight, nothing left in the way. It's slow to watch, he's in no hurry at all. There's a rhythm to it. Pull, shake the dirt off the roots, set it in the basket, reach for the next, over and over. He's done this 10,000 times, and his hands know it better than he does. I bent down to help, and I started chucking rocks into a little pile right next to the clean dirt. He watched me do it for a second, then he quietly picked up my whole pile and moved it a few feet further out, away from the bed. Even the rocks have a right place to be. I was doing it wrong, and he fixed it without saying one word to me. And the weeds don't go in the trash. They go to his pile in the far corner, the same compost heap I showed you in the fertilizer video. Nothing on his property lives as garbage if it can come back as soil someday. My mom said he'd compost the whole house if we ever let him. I stood there and watched him work that strip down to bare, clean ground. And that's when I finally saw what he had seen a full hour before I did. Not a mess, not a hopeless corner, a blank bed, waiting. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just pulling weeds. Why make a whole thing out of it? Because this is the exact step people rush, and it's the step that quietly decides your entire season. A half-clear bed fights you for months. The weed roots you left behind come right back, stronger than before, stealing water and food from the plant you actually wanted. The rocks you skip over sit down there like little walls. And when your new roots try to grow down, they hit those rocks and stop short. Then you spend all summer standing over the bed, wondering why nothing's really taking off. And the truth is, the answer was decided on day one. The afternoon you cleared that bed in a hurry. My father clears it once, and he clears it all the way, so he never has to fight that ground again for the rest of the season. He'd rather spend one extra hour now on his knees in the dirt than lose one healthy plant 2 months from now. Slow at the start, easy the whole rest of the way. That's how he does almost everything. And it honestly took me 20 years to understand why. I used to think he was just being stubborn, doing it the hard way because it was the old way. Now I know it's the opposite. He does the hard part first, so the rest stay easy. Watching him clear that strip took me straight back to when I was a kid, because this isn't the first dead corner he's ever turned into food. Not even close. There was a narrow patch by the back wall of our old house. Same story, rocks, weeds, the spot everyone stepped over. My father cleared it one afternoon, just like this, and put in something that climbed. By the middle of that summer, that ugly little strip was a green wall, and it just kept giving. Here's the part I remember most though. It's not the plants, it's the kitchen. My mom would come out with a bowl, pick whatever was ready, and disappear back inside. And that evening, the whole family would sit down to a meal that came out of a corner nobody else on the street would have bothered with. Nobody talked about where it came from. We were all too busy eating. That's what my father understood that I didn't for a long time. A wasted corner isn't just wasted dirt. It's meals you're not making. It's a bowl your mom doesn't get to fill. To him, letting good ground sit empty isn't lazy. It's the same as pouring food down the drain. And he will not do it. So, what's finally going into this bed? Remember that one word he said at the very beginning when he pointed up at the wall? Beans. Climbing beans. And now the whole thing clicks into place. A bean that climbs doesn't need a wide bed. It needs a wall. And now it has one, a good one. Warm and sunny, already standing there for free. This kind is ready to start picking in about 40 days. That's fast for a garden. And once it starts giving, it doesn't stop. It keeps handing you more of the same plants week after week for weeks on end. My father worked all of that out in his head while he was standing in front of a pile of rocks. He wasn't clearing some random corner and then deciding what to do with it. He'd already chosen the plan. He was building the exact right home for it. This little strip, the one I would have ignored for the rest of my life, is going to put food on our table all season long. More than we can eat, enough to hand baskets of it over the fence to the neighbors, and still have plenty left for my mom's kitchen, from 2 feet of dirt against a wall. That's it. But the beans are the next video. Today, we did the hard part. The part nobody films, and the part that decides everything. We gave the ground a chance. One more thing before I let you go, and it's easy to miss if you're not looking for it. When my father finished clearing that strip, he left a shallow little channel running along the base of the wall. On purpose. Here's why. When it rains, water pours off the roof and runs straight down the face of that wall. If the bed sits flat and tight against it, all that water pools right at the roots and drowns them. You did everything right, and the first big storm rots your plants from the bottom. So he leaves that little channel to give the rain somewhere else to go. The wall hands him a free trellis and a warm sunny spot, but he won't let it drown what he plants there. It's a small thing, but 40 years of small things like that is the whole difference between his garden and the one I used to kill every summer. So let's walk the whole thing back. He didn't go hunting for good soil. He took the worst corner he had. He read the spot before he ever touched it. The weeds told him the ground was still alive. The rocks told him how much work it would take. He looked at the wall and saw a free trellis, not a dead end. He cleared the strip once and cleared it all the way so it would never fight him again. And he left the rain a way out. That's the whole thing. No money spent, no good dirt hauled in from a store, just eyes that knew what to look for, and hands that won't waste a single thing. My father didn't find a garden bed that day. He made one out of the exact spot everyone else had already given up on.